Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are in the world, and welcome back to World Online Racing PC Tier 2. My name is Max Ring. We are back here after a week's hiatus, and I'm joined by the lovely Joseph Black once again. How are you, Joseph, on this Monday evening?
I'm very good, very excited to get started. Of course, it's great to get the opportunity to do PC Tier 2 every once in a while, and we're here at Azerbaijan, the host of many a different crazy race. So hopefully we're going to get something similar as, our regular top tier. Not, of course, not Tier 1, but Tier 2 heads around the Baku Street Circuit.
Yes, they certainly do. So just before we get into qualifying, our drivers just heading out onto the circuit now, let's quickly talk you through your circuit for this evening. So we are, of course, here at Azerbaijan, 6.003 kilometers or 3.730 miles, a total of 20 turns around this circuit. There are 8 to the right and 12 to the left. We'll have 26 laps of racing action this evening, with only 2 DRS zones, of course. The first one being down that main straight, the detection zone just down just as you finish the lap, and then of course the second DRS straight being in between turns 2 and 3, and the detection zone being in between turns 1 and 2. Should be a very eventful evening here around this street circuit, of course first featured in 2016. And Joseph, as we head over to trackside, it should be an evening where we could see some potential chaos.
We could. I mean, there's various different opportunities for drivers to crash. For example, the one that Ryan Bakar was about to come up to there now. The main area is the castle section, Tamash Kokeni, slapping the wall in the middle of that first sector. But yeah, these drivers heading through at the moment. The first couple of sectors getting their laps on board, and we're getting straight to the soft runs. We're getting straight to the competitive runs as they see their way around the Baku City Circuit. I believe some of the drivers are going to be a little bit scared of, in particular, crashing out and having some issues later on in qualifying, which is why I think we'll see flying laps straight away.
Yeah, I certainly do think so as well, and I feel like a circuit like this is where confidence play is very key. It's a circuit where you have to be on the limit of yourself and of the car as well. So you really have to be in that kind of mindset to be successful around a circuit like this, especially through that castle section. You're pretty much threading the needle between the two barriers as you head up the hill, and if you're a little bit unconfident through there and a little bit nervous heading up that hill, you can lose heaps of time around a circuit like this, Joseph, and especially in qualifying, that can play such a huge factor on starting position, as JSD goes to the line of 37.8 and Tamash Kokeni instantly beats that of a 37.5. So some quick laps coming in already, but yeah, confidence certainly key around a circuit like this.
Certainly is. You need to have the ability to throw the car in. We saw that on board with Tamash Kokeni and Gabo Shontos going a tenth quicker, 37.4, and the two Aston Martins at the top of the timing sheets. As 5 drivers have now set times, I think we'll be seeing something towards the end of the session, something along the lines of maybe a 37.1, 37.2, a low 37 at the very least. And at the moment, just getting a 37.4 on the board is going to give Gabo Shontos a little bit of confidence heading into the later stages of this qualifying session. 3 drivers in the 37.8, JST, Joe Van Bussel and Pasquale Ranieri. 3 drivers in the 38, and make that 4 as Lucas Beisner is up to the line. So I think there's a lot of potential for all of these drivers to find time past the 37.8, joining the club. And it's starting to look like Shontos and Kokeni have had great starts to their qualifying sessions.
They certainly have. That seems to be a very strong lap time so far from the two Aston Martins. He's also up to the line. He goes into those 0.8s as well. 6 fastest, exactly a 0.8 actually, from Diego Zorzo. Of course, Luca Rabassa, your championship leader here this evening. We'll run you through your standings a little bit later on, but still plenty to play for. And a circuit like this can certainly switch title dynamics. One small mistake around any of these corners or a poor qualifying can instantly change a championship dynamic if the competitors and the championship rivals do well. And that's a big thing about these kinds of seasons, where you're in amongst a toughly fought championship. Yes, you have a points advantage over the rest of the field, but 2 poor races here, Joseph, and that championship could unravel. And for Luca Rapassa, he just needs to make sure he gets through the rest of this season cleanly, just to hold on to that championship lead.
It very much does. Consistency is key, and that's exactly what Luca Rapassa will be hoping to bring out throughout the rest of his campaign so far. And, well, it's not been a bad start for him, but he needs to maintain that pace at the moment. And 7th place in this first split of qualifying isn't too bad, all things considered. I think setting a 37 lap time appears to be a decent start to your qualifying session. 13th down to 19th in the 38th, and Pepe Marti last place in this field in 20th with a 39.0, just a touch over the 38th. But yeah, I think Gabo Xontos and Tamas Kokeni have had an incredible start to their races, just like Luca Rapassa's had an incredible start to his campaign. And he's one of those drivers you'd expect up the top of the field at this point in time. I think there's a few drivers that will be hoping to be right up there. Not just in terms of the championship, but in terms of the finishing positions. Cameron Dowds, of course, who is not racing tonight. I don't believe he is second in that championship, 48 points behind Luca Rapassa, so just over, or just under even, half the points behind. So Rapassa, great start in the first half of the season. He's going to look to capitalise and seal this one within the next few rounds.
Yeah, he certainly is. I mean, he's got a 50-point lead over Cameron Dowds in the standings, and I mean, Cameron Dowds isn't even here tonight. So I talk about how a poor run of form could potentially just unravel a championship or just lose him some valuable points, and his closest competitor isn't here, and he's actually 60 points clear of Ryan Modler. So it just makes things that little bit better. He's just he's 2 race victories and then another like 2nd place separating him, and of course Ryan Modler in that 3rd place in the standings, and that is really crucial in this championship. Of course, we're here at round 6 here for the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, and with only a 12 race calendar, you think that really here, no sorry, a 10 race calendar, that really here, it's just a matter of time for Rapassa to pick up this championship, Joseph. And I mean, we head to Silverstone next week, and I think at Imola, sorry, for round 8, if he carries on the form he is, he's actually got potential to wrap up the championship next week in Silverstone before we even head to round 8.
Especially if his championship contenders don't race. So, for example, the likes of Cameron Dow's not racing is going to extend Rapassa's advantage. I think somebody just needs to knock him off his perch, knock him off of the podium, because he's finished there every single race this season, and actually the worst result he's got so far is 3rd place at Monaco. Andre Molnar, of course, taking victory in his first race of the season then, and Gabo Xontos, who's only finished on the podium. He's had 3 races, he's not finished once, and the other 2 times he's finished 1st and 2nd. So there's a couple of drivers to watch out for throughout the course of the season. Of course, we've got one racing tonight, that being Gabo Xontos, who is at the top of the sheets at the moment as drivers start their second runs. JST, the first one to do so, and he's going to head down the second straight. The first sector is all about that straight line speed. You won't have much of it, though, as you'll be preparing for that second sector, which is so crucial. The first sector, while it's important to get all of that pace, is just about setting yourself up in the best position for gaining all that time in the second sector. That is where we'll see the differences between the drivers, and I wouldn't be surprised if we saw all the telemetry between all the drivers. It would be the majority of the pace gained would be in that second sector. Purple allegedly in the first sector from JST as he heads through towards the Tricky Castle section. Will we see anybody bin it there tonight? We'll have to wait and see, but it's not going to be JST on this occasion as he finds his way through, but he does tap the wall on the exit. That's going to lose him a 10th or 2, and that's not ideal for the V-Carb as he heads down towards the end of the second sector.
Yeah, here we are then, JST. His lap seeming alright for now. Of course, the second sector split just after here, turn 16. Take as much curb as you possibly can, really flinging that car over that apex curb. Through the middle sector split we shall go, and he's down by just under, 0.2 of a second, and he aborts the lap. Maybe got a little bit impeded by one of the cars there. I'm not sure who exactly that may have been. It was a Haas, so could have been Wojtek Stake. No, it wasn't. It could have been Larry Tulki, actually, who impeded that lap. But really unfortunate to see for JST there. Is next on the lap, I think, is going to be one of the Aston Martins. It could be Tamas Kokeni, and yes, it is. So we can see the man currently provisionally on that first row of the grid in second place. Can he displace his Aston Martin teammate and potentially go into the 37 freeze to give him a strong chance at pole position here? Tamas Kokeni up to the line, hugging that inside line so close to the wall as possible to scrub off as many meters as he can, and he does go to that provisional pole time, but only just 12 thousandths of a second separating the top two in this standing. Though Jerry Van Bussel goes to the top of the times, a 37.3 from him, and Gabor Shontos has crashed at turn 3, so disaster there for the man that took provisional pole after the first set of runs. We're on board with Tamas Kokeni to see if we can see the car. No, we cannot, but for Shontos, disaster here. Joseph, who was got the quickest time on the first runs, as that's Langrock up into 4th, Luca Rapassa up into 5th, so good lap times there from then. But for Gabor, that's a big shock at this mid-stage of qualifying.
I'll be honest, I haven't got a clue how he's managed to crash there, because that's one of those corners where you're not really scared about crashing out. But yeah, Gabor Shontos out at turn number 3. Maybe he's just locked up and gone straight on, or maybe I think what he's done is he's managed to spin the car somehow and really overcook the tyres, and that is going to be the end of Gabor Shontos' qualifying session. Just 12 hundredths of a second off of Tamas Kokeni in second place, so he was doing incredibly well, and Larry Tulke drawing to within a tenth of a second, drawing to within 100 or 400ths of a second, in fact. That is going to be crucial. As you can see, the time's coming down now. Is Rayan Bakar going to do anything to close in? Nobody is going to close in onto the 37s. As up to the times at the top is going to be Dennis Langrock and Ryan Modler. Ryan with a 37.472, Dennis Langrock with a 37.5. So there's times being set here that are going to challenge Gabor Shontos, and I wouldn't be surprised if he drops from pole position in the first set of runs all the way down to outside of the top 10 as we head towards the end of this session. That's the second runs for the majority of the drivers, either in progress or done, and then we're going to head to the final runs, and we'll head to the final opportunities for the drivers to set their times in qualifying and stake their claim for pole position. Van Bussel at the moment on top by 800ths of a second ahead of Tamas Kokeni.
Yeah, nice stuff there from Jerry Van Bussel to take that provisional pole for now. But of course, with one more run, anything can happen. With that slight track evolution as well, it could mean we see some drivers potentially dip into the .2s. It's going to be a very interesting end to this one, of course, with one of the big contenders now out. It just slims down that pecking order. That means more chances for some of these drivers to potentially snatch that pole position away. Of course, we're just in that little bit of a lull at this current stage of things. Of course, a 1 minute 37 laps. Expect the drivers to come out of the pit lane around about that 3 minute to 2 minute 30 second mark and get their out laps done. And that could be so crucial. Track position is going to be king. It's going to be key around here. And we saw Jerry Van Bussel having no effects from any of the cars in front of him. He was quite in a somewhat of a little gap, in a little bubble on the circuit, and was able to take that pole position. And of course, as more drivers now, they've got 2 laps under their belts in this qualifying session. They've dialed themselves into the session here, Joseph. That now means surely we're going to see a lot more confidence, especially through that middle sector, just eke through in their driving styles.
Yeah, it is actually difficult to see who is going to take that pole position, because of course that track evolution, which appears to be more and more critical as we head through the session. 3 minutes 50 left, and our final drivers into the pit lane for the final time, getting those preparations going, the final chats with the engineers. Van Bussel with the least pressure on him, and well, he was just lucky, I think, to get the opportunity that he did. Tamas Kokeni, of course, with that 440, went out early, had completely clean air, and he was able to use it to full advantage. And I think it's all about taking that clean air in this qualifying session more than any other. That sector 2 is so incredibly crucial. That castle section can make or break your lap, and if you've not got any dirty air through there, it's going to gain you a hell of a lot of time, especially if you're able to get that slipstream down at the final straight. We've got our final drivers coming out. The first V-carb of the first of the grid being the V-carb, I believe that was of JST. Indeed it is. Kino is back out onto the field, and he is on his outlap, a 37.8 at the moment, a 37.7 for Tom Roberts, the second driver out, and Daniel Gottschalk splitting the 2 with a 37.8. And, well, I feel like we're going to be getting pole position laps a little bit higher than I thought we were going to be able to. Maybe this in online session, it's going to be a little bit slower than in an offline one. But that 37.3 from Jerry Van Bussel, I still think is under threat. I think it's going to be a low 37.3 that's going to be pole position. And I think Jerry's going to have to get one more lap in here.
Yeah, he certainly is. That pole position is certainly not safe. And we're going to have to see if he can just either strengthen his grasp on it or somehow fend off the chasing pack behind. And the first one to have a bite of the cherry is going to be JSD in that V-carb on that 37.8. When you just look how close it is, from second down to 13th, it's a gap of a total of 0.4 of a second. If he finds 2 tenths here, JSD sees himself shoot all the way up into 8th place. So a beautiful amount of improvement you can find by just a bit more confidence through that middle part of the lap. And JSD is now going to be starting his final attempt here in qualifying. Everybody behind him will not have any other opportunities. We are going to see if JSD can challenge Jerry Van Bussel, or anyone can challenge Jerry Van Bussel for this pole position. It begins now. The final runs are now underway, and JSD into that first corner, late on the brakes, down to second gear. Had to recorrect the car, just maybe broke it a little bit too early and turned in a little bit earlier than anticipated as he now heads through turn 2. DRS then open for JSD as he drives all the way down into turn 3. It's an agonisingly long straight, and you just have to pick out your braking zone there on the right hand side. A very small 100-metre board just to then flick the car in through turn 4. Nicely done through there, keeps it just out of the outside wall. Through turn 5, a lot of natural understeer through there, but he manages to navigate his way through the middle first sector split. He's up by 1/10 of a second. Needs a little bit more through this middle sector, a bit wide through turn 7 as he now heads up on the brakes. This is now into the castle section. A little lock up there, a little bit wide on exit. It's going to cost him some time up into this part of the circuit. Lovely stuff. So much commitment through the castle section there for JSD as he now heads into turns 12, 13, and 13, 14, and 15. Of course, now you're going to be late on the brakes down into turn 16. Second gear, a little bit of a slide there from the rear of the car. The rear axle just complaining ever so slightly through the middle sector split now, and he's lost time just like we saw in his second run. He's lost time once again. So JSD with his run up to the line now. What will this be as he heads through turns 19 and 20? It'll be DRS open in a few moments time. And has he found anything over the course of this lap? DRS now open. Is he going to find at least a small improvement to see in front of Daniel Gottschalk? Up to the line he goes. No, he just can't find it. Tom Roberts is the next challenger. He's up by just under 1/10.5 in the middle sector. Across the line he goes. He lost a little bit of time and then goes 9th fastest. Daniel Gottschalk not able to improve on his lap time either. I think that's Wojtek Steg coming to the line. Yes, it is. Where can he go? He goes 14th fastest. Tamas Kokeni to the line. He snatches that pole position away from Jerry Van Bussel. All eyes to the Red Bull now. Can he snatch it back? No, just misses out ever so slightly. But we still have more drivers on laps, including championship leader Luca Rapassa, who takes that pole by 4 thousandths of a second. A beautiful pole position there from Luca Rapassa. But can Ryan Modler have his say in all of this?
He's certainly going to try to, and he's going to head around the final corner, having improved by 0.04 of a second in the first few sectors. As we've got more times coming in, I believe that was Joel Marquardt going up, Pepe Marti finding a whole second on his lap, but only going up to 17th place. Modler now on the run down to the line. He's going to be completely flat out, using everything that he's possibly got to try and find what he can do and try and steal Luca Rapassa's pole position away. Ryan Modler up to the line. It's a 37.296. It's 5th, so it's a good lap, but it's not quite good enough. It's 3 thousandths off of Diego Zorzo. Pasquale Ranieri improves, and he's up to 6th place. We've only got one driver left, and it's Riyad Sproget, who did improve, but it wasn't quite enough to get that pole position. Luca Rapassa picks up his first pole position of the season, and That is a very, very, very close one at the top. 4,000ths of a second ahead of Tamas Kokeni, 300ths ahead of Jerry Van Bussel, and then Diego Zorzo and Ryan Modler still within a tenth of a second. Pasquale Ranieri in 6th place, and then a big gap back to Gabor Shontos, who didn't drop off as much as I thought he would. I think there was a few poor laps coming in at the end, maybe a couple of invalidations. Shontos in 7th. Larry Tulke, Dennis Langrock, and John Marquardt rounding out the top 10 before it's Sprogis, Roberts, Lutt, Beisner, and I think we're going to miss out on the rest of the drivers. But that is your top 14, and it's going to be Luca Rapassa, our championship dominant driver, taking that pole position.
Yes, lovely stuff there from your championship leader, just picking up where he left off before the break, and that really is just exactly what he needed. But let's quickly talk you through the standings now, just before we head into the race. So as you can see, Luca Rapassa leads the way on 101 points over Cameron Dowds in 2nd. He's on 53 points, followed by Ryan Modler and Gabor Santos, both tied on 43 points respectively in 3rd and 4th. Then we have Lucas Beisner in 5th, Tamas Kokeni in 6th on 30 points, Andre Molnar, of course, with that race win in Monaco, not here this evening, on 25, Wojtek Stepp with 20, Lewis Bloor on 18, and JSD rounding out that top 10 with 17. But it just shows how dominant Luca Rapassa has been here this season, Joseph, not finishing off the podium once, and he's got a lengthy advantage over the rest of the field to show that.
He certainly has. It's been an incredible campaign so far from Luca Rapassa, and it's just, he's dominated, and I think he's on his way to take the title home. He would do a very good job to do so, and well, I think he's just done so incredibly well so far this season. He fully deserves what he's gotten so far in this campaign. But of course, he is looking to take home his first Tier 2 title, and what a campaign he would have had if he's able to take it. I wouldn't be surprised as well if it's the most dominant campaign of anyone in Tier 2. I've not checked it, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's the most dominant, if he's able to end up with over double the points of anybody else.
Yeah, it would be arguably the most dominant. I'm not too sure on the stats of that, but it certainly would be up there, because, I mean, he's got 2 race wins over his nearest opponent in the standings, and that's Cameron Dowd, so it just shows how strong he has been. Of course, he was on a 1st and 2nd place streak for the first 4 races, and if it wasn't for Monaco, he could certainly have seen himself a little bit further up the pecking order. But now he's on pole position here in Baku. Is exactly what he needs, and with Cameron Dowd not here, Modler behind him as well, he could see himself potentially here, Joseph, going up to 60, 70 points depending on how this race turns out in the championship lead. And by that point, is there really any likability of anybody catching him for the rest of the season?
No, I don't think there's any really... I don't think there's a great possibility of anybody catching him now, with the gap that he's got, double the amount of points of somebody who's not racing tonight. But we're about to head to... we're about to head to the start of our race. And in fact, I believe we have headed to the start of our race here in Azerbaijan. It's a dominant lead so far for Luca Rapassa. Tamas Kokeni holds that 2nd place, and Van Bussel and Zorzo 3rd and 4th.
Yeah, lovely start there from Luca Rapassa. Off the line, was able to jump Kokeni and be able to hold on to things quite nicely. As we now have a squabble between Gabor Shontos and Pasquale Ranieri, as we now see heading up into turn 3. The Aston Martin just trying to hold on against the Alpine. Is he going to be able to do anything here? Ryan Modler just in front of them too, as Pasquale just gets the better of Gabor Shontos on this first lap. Dennis Lanrock, I think, is going side by side with Richard Sprogis over that 10th place in this race. He's actually now fighting against Larry Tulke as well for 8th now, as he looks to the outside line into turn 7 to be able to pull this one off. Be squeezed into the wall, just not going to be close enough for them moving into the castle section. You have to be single file through there. as you actually tell Tom Roberts and Joel Marquardt that, as they actually somehow survive, going 2 by 2, and that's Keaton Lutz into the side of Joel Marquardt as he now tumbles down the order as well. Disastrous start for him, who actually climbed up a few places off the line, and actually some front wing flying off as well as we head up into turns 13 and 14. So really unfortunate for the McLaren driver as he sees himself without a front wing end plate. But for Luca Rapacerol in front here, Joseph, it's a dream start. He's 6 tenths clear and looking to potentially try break this second, but with the DRS zone being in between turns 2 and 3, I just don't think he has the legs to do so.
No, he's done an incredible start so far, and he and Tamas Kokeni look like they're clearing their way past the field. DRS has been enabled on lap 2 of this race, and I think Kokeni and Rapasa are in the greatest place of all to be able to break free of anybody. I don't even think Diego Zorzo is going to have the pole position, or it's going to have the DRS behind Jerry Van Bussel in 4th place. He's just about managed to sneak his way back in as we head down at the next straight. There's a little bit of scrapping down at the bottom of the field between Keaton Lutz and Rayan Bakar, and Wojtek Steg involving himself in that one as well. Lutz gets his way through on Bakar, and Steg drops down as well, but they might be 3 wide into the next braking zone. They went 2 wide. There's contact. Lutz tapped the wall, and he's had an absolute horror show of a start, and he's just trying to carry his way back up, still side by side with Bakar, but he's going to have to give up the position.
He will have to just give up that position, of course, with that end plate damage as well. And now being tagged by Wojciech Steg. It goes from bad to worse in the span of the 2. That's for Keaton Lutz. And unfortunately for the McLaren, when it rains at the moment, it certainly does pour. As Matthias van Erven, I think he's had an issue as well, as he's now dropped down into 18th place, got passed by both Ryan Bakar and Wojciech Steg. So I think he might have had a moment too. So really unfortunate for the 2 Williams drivers at the moment, and also Keaton Lutz not having the greatest starts to things. As we see at the front of the field once more, we have Tamas Kokeni and Luca Rapasa. As you can see, look how close that Aston Martin is. Just in that slipstream alone, he's gaining at a rate of knots. And this could be his opportunity to get by the Red Bull, as we see him now use that DRS down the main straight. Side by side they shall go. And Kokeni sees himself through with sheer ease up into that race lead. But I think we're going to see a lot of this at the start of the race, at least, Joseph. A lot of drivers just wanting to swap places, save their tyres, save their batteries, and just push on into that clean air for a little while. And then when we get to that second stint, I think it's going to really congest a lot more again. But for Tamas Kokeni, he now leads the race.
I think there's a case to be made that the medium tyres feel absolutely horrible around this circuit, and that is going to be... We're not going to get very many aggressive scraps at this point because they just don't want to watch them go off the tyre, whereas so incredibly high on them and the hards are so much better, and so the drivers are just... they're going to wait out this medium tyre period. Tamas Kokeni hoping to go in the dirty air, hoping to try and get no tyre wear as much as possible, as much as he can possibly avoid it, from being in the slipstream of Luca Rapasa. Jerry Van Bussel, of course, following through in 3rd place. So he's managed to pull his way through back into that slipstream. So has Diego Zorzo. So the top 4, the top 5, everybody down to Lucas Beiser in 15th are in the DRS range and are ready to fight. Lap 3 of 26, and Tamas Kokeni and Luca Rapasa are starting to develop themselves as the fight for the lead of this one, and as the ones to fight for that victory. But of course, strategy is so crucial, and it's just about now who is going to come into the pits when. I think that's going to decide the race. An undercut may well be the strongest strategy, and Tamas Kokeni has moved past Luca Rapasa, who was on that pole position, to go up to the top of the grid. We're about to move on to lap number 4. Kokeni 6 tenths ahead. We'll see how much Rapasa rips into that with the DRS as we head down the straight.
Yeah, we certainly shall, but I think actually Luca Rapasa might be just running a little bit more on the wing front compared to the Aston Martin, as Riyad Sprogis has just been overtaken not only by Tom Roberts but Joel Marquardt as well, as we head down into that main straight. A little bit of contact as well between Marquardt and Roberts. Marquardt forced off the road, and he now sees himself down into 12th place, trying to fight back against Riyad Sprogis. Will have to now try claw that gap back down once again. And unfortunately there for Joel, he just sees himself, unfortunately, lose out on that 10th place battle, as Tom Roberts is now 1.1 seconds behind Dennis Langerock. But as I was trying to say just then here, Joseph, I think Rapasa has got potentially a bit heavier on the downforce. He's gone for a different direction in the setup. He's not gaining as much in the slipstream as Kokeni did. And I think that could be, I mean, it will help save the tyres. But down that main straight, he's going to be a sitting duck, even to his teammate Jerry Van Bussel behind. But yeah, for Luca Rapassa, I think he's got a complete different direction. I don't see it working in terms of getting an overtake done.
No, I really don't. I think there's people are going to really struggle to find some ways of getting past other drivers, which is going to be where some of these drivers will get stuck, where they're just stuck behind other people. Ninth is Dennis Langrock. He has managed to break free. Just that little bit of Tom Roberts. Roberts is going to be able to wheedle his way back into the DRS for the time being, but I don't think it's going to last for long. That is an Alpine and a Ferrari. These two are an Alpine and a Ferrari. Pasquale Ranieri past Ryan Modler, but Modler's going to get that DRS down the main straight, and this is where the Ferrari is able to breeze back past and hold on to that DRS. This is what happens when you overtake here at Azerbaijan. You need to make sure that you're still in the slipstream, otherwise you could be royally screwed by the time you head down to turn number 1. And of course, you've got 2 DRS zones basically back to back, and at the moment they are just about to scrap once again. John Marquardt gets past Sprogis, and there's a couple of DRS switches, as actually it's going to be the case that Ryan Modler stays behind Pasquale Ranieri, and that's going to cost them huge amounts, as it's 1.6 seconds between Zorzo and Ranieri. So the Alpine dropping down now, and I'm not sure they'll be able to recover and find their way back into the slipstream. That could be a crucial moment in this race as Ranieri past Modler.
Yeah, nice stuff there from Ranieri as Langrock looking for a move potentially onto the back of Larry Tulke. He's getting really close to the back of the Haas, actually. Of course, these two were squabbling at the start of the first lap. We could potentially see a move being made by the Scuderia Ferrari driver. At the moment, he's just sitting firm in that 9th place. And yeah, really, it's going to be difficult now for Pasquale to get back into that DRS of Diego Zorzo, because that main straight is so long. And, of course, heading through down that straight between turns 2 and 3, it's 2 back-to-back DRS zones, essentially. And you just hemorrhage so much time that it's very difficult to claw it back over the course of the rest of the lap. I'm saying this, and he's nearly back into DRS range, actually, as the Alpine. So he's had to use his battery, but now he's back in that DRS as Zorzo. He could potentially just hold station, just save the battery a little bit more. As you can see, that gap now 0.8 of a second. So he's made it back into the Mercedes DRS range. And I think what a big factor is of that as well here, Joseph, is if you're a single car chasing a single car, a train of 2, it's a lot easier to get, a lot harder to get back into that DRS because there's less bottlenecking. There isn't as much of the drivers congesting into one another, and that's what makes things really difficult to find time around a circuit like this. But when you've got 4 cars all congesting and emerging onto the same piece of circuit, it means that you can see drivers behind close back into that DRS range. Ranieri wasn't able to do that this time around, but I think maybe on this one here, he could get back within that DRS range in that middle sector.
Yeah, it's so much easier to chase somebody that's single than somebody that is taken. And at the moment, Pasquale Ranieri trying to make his way back into that DRS of Diego Zorzo. He's done quite well, to be fair, but he has pushed that car very hard. Although if he's able to make it back into that slipstream, it won't matter. And if he's able to make it back into that DRS, it won't matter at all, because he'll get the opportunity to take some of that ERS back and just sit in that position for now. The Alpine in 5th place, in a decent position, just a touch outside the DRS. But if he's able to push himself through the second sector, then I think he'll be able to be all right. If not, though, then I think he's pushed too hard. Then, well, he's gambled on getting back into it this lap, essentially. And I think it might be an opportunity where Ranieri can take it and go, I'm going to jump into the pits, because absolutely why not at this point in the race? He just feels as though if he drops out of that DRS, and he's pushed everything he can, why not go into the pits? And he's tapped the wall, has Ranieri, and Ryan Modler done the same thing, I think. And that is just mistakes breeding mistakes. Has Modler still got all of his front wing? Yes, he has. So I think he's gotten away with that one. But yeah, Ryan Modler just having a little moment with the wall. Pasquale Ranieri with the same, and he's dropped 0.4 of a second with it. And now I think is the opportunity for him to come into the pits, because I think he might have front wing damage too. And in he looks to come on this lap, pulling over to the left-hand side. Gabo Shontos diving in too. So it's an early pit stop, but one that is altogether expected. Is Pasquale going to fix that front wing? Did he even take damage to that front wing, or is this just a regulation pit stop? We'll see what it is. We'll see as well what it is with Shontos. Shontos not changing a front wing at all, so he's going to come out of the pits absolutely fine. But Pasquale is going to fix that front wing, and he is going to come out further down the field than he would have liked. But we're going to have the first pit stops coming out. Shontos, Ranieri, Steg, and Daniel Gottschalk.
Yeah, nice stuff there from Shontos, being able to get that jump as well on Modler after that mistake. And it's what happens when you're following a car ahead. You somewhat, mentally and incoherently, then just follow their lines. You brake at somewhat the same points. You then, of course, follow them through some of the corners, and you really learn off the car in front, and you subconsciously elect to just follow them through. And that's how those mistakes get made, where two drivers slam into the wall in quick succession. It's because the other driver is distracted because he's looking at the driver in front and seeing what he's doing and trying to do the same. So for Gabor, he capitalised on Modler and also Ranieri's now front wing damage for the Alpine and the mistake from the Ferrari. So he's done really well there. And so now move himself up into what would be a net P5 in this moment. But it'll be interesting now as well, now he's come out behind Keaton Lutt too, to see how strong this undercut is. Of course, in that middle sector, those fresher tyres will completely destroy those 6-lap-old mediums. But then down the straights, he's not got the use of the DRS compared to the rest of the field. And then that could be a real big issue for him, as we can see Luca Rapassa now going for that move on Tamas Kokeni. And no, the Aston Martin dives into the pit lane. So this is now crucial to see where Kokeni will come out in relation to some of the others in a few moments' time. So the undercut, it's a risky game, but it certainly could pay off, especially if you're confident through that middle sector. I think you're muted.
Yeah, it certainly is. The drivers coming in now are the ones taking the opportunities, diving into the pit lane and just seeing what they're going to be able to do. Kokeni is going to be out ahead of Gabor Shontos, and Jerry Van Bussel is as well. Shontos 2.2 seconds down, and Keaton Lutt a further second down on Shontos, and he's going to drop behind Keaton Lutt, or Ryan Modler even, who has that DRS, and he's also going to drop behind Larry Tulke. So Keaton Lutt really missing out on the opportunity, and he's having a horror show of a race. I wouldn't be surprised if he decides to be the first one to dive into the pit lane to retire in this session, just because it feels like he's in that train with everybody else. He's not in the train with all the medium runners. He's in the train with the hard runners. And so I wouldn't be surprised if he takes that gamble, comes into the, or not takes that gamble, takes that moment to come into the pits and retires from the session, becoming the first one to do so. But if he does push through with it, I don't think he would regret it. I think we're in for a late race safety car here. It feels like it's getting a little bit stagnant. So we could get something that might spice it up. The drivers might be falling just that little bit of sleep at the wheel. And then one mistake could cause a safety car and change this race on its head. We've got 10 drivers currently on a set of the mediums, 10 drivers currently on a set of the hards. This race very much in the balance.
It certainly is. And then are Luca Rapassa and Diego Zorzo got to respond? Yes, they are. Into the pit lane comes Rapassa, and Zorzo is going to follow him in. So let's see where Luca Rapassa comes out in relation to Tamas Kokeni. Of course, Jerry Van Bussel as well. His teammate came into the pit lane on that previous tour of the circuit. And we could see the two Red Bull drivers have that switch as Kokeni's into pit lane again. Tamas Kokeni, who was leading this race, back into pit lane again. I think he's picked up some front wing damage somewhere around the circuit. And that's disaster for the Aston Martin. He's obviously got off at turn 16 there, I think. And for Tamas Kokeni, that might have just put to bed his race-winning chances, as Jerry Van Bussel was able to jump his teammate of Luca Rapassa. So it's all kicking off here on lap 9 of 26. Disaster for the race leader, and for Jerry Van Bussel, he then leapfrogs his teammate to get that net race lead away.
Yeah, Tamas Kokeni, that is very unfortunate for him, because he looked so very good with the pace in this race, and instead he's had to sacrifice this race and drop down to the bottom of the field, being around where Keaton Lutt is, and 7.3 seconds off of Daniel Gottschalk, just up ahead of him. And yeah, Jerry Van Bussel jumping Luca Rapassa. The lap to pit looked like it was going to be lap 8, and that was proven, as Jerry jumped Rapassa and Zorzo, Modler and Tulke jumped Langrock, and JST dropping down behind Pasquale Ranieri and Joel Marquardt as well. So it looks like lap number 8 was the time to come in, and Jerry Van Bussel already in that DRS of Lucas Beisner. Is he going to be able to get past the Kick Sauber as they head down the main straight? I wouldn't be surprised if they were able to get past him and Rayan Bakar as well. Our first penalty of the day coming out for Daniel Gottschalk with a 3-second time penalty for multiple warnings. And it's going to be Jerry Van Bussel closing in now on Lucas Beisner. Is he going to be able to get through? He's right on the rear of that Kick Sauber. He might not even need DRS to make his way through, and around the outside he goes and through. Jerry Van Bussel goes past Lucas Beisner. Is Rapassa going to be able to get through as well, as Matthias van Erven goes past Richard Sprogis, who's into pit lane. So's Lucas Beisner, as Sprogis taking second time penalty for coming into the pit lane too fast. Through goes Rapassa on Rayan Bakar. He's up into 4th place, net P2, and Bakar is going to drop to 5th place, and I think he's going to get swallowed up on this lap.
Yeah, I certainly think he is. As here comes Rapasa now on Jerry Van Bussel. Is he going to get that move done on his teammate? I think he's just going to sit behind for now as Daniel Gottschalk with that 3-second time penalty is our first retirement of the evening for the McLaren outfit here at Baku. It has been a disastrous evening for them, and they will not look back on this one with fond memories as we see Luca Rapasa still getting close to the back of Van Bussel. Not able to do anything just yet. He just has 1.2 seconds to Matthias Van Erven in front. So we could see a very much a repeat situation of what we saw on that previous tour, where we saw, of course, Rapasa and also Van Bussel getting past the likes of Ryan Bakker, who's now holding up Diego Zorzo through the castle section, and this is allowing the two Red Bulls to just gallop off into the distance, and this is really not going to help the Spaniard as he now sees himself stuck behind the kick Sauber into the braking zone at turn 16. Is a move going to be made? No, there is not, and Gabor Zonchos as well could be in the hot seat to try and get past Diego and Ryan down into turn 1, but for the two Red Bulls, they are going to be licking their lips at the opportunity they have here, and I think they're certainly going to see themselves streak off into the distance.
They very much are. It's a great opportunity for Van Bussel and Rapasa, as Diego also needs to get past Ryan Bakker now. Van Bussel's past Van Erven, and Tom Roberts is into the pit lane. Is Van Erven going to join him? Is Ryan Bakker going to join him? He's going to have to back off and let Zorzo through, and actually Ryan is not going to come into. He's going to take those mediums for 10 laps, and Gabor Shontos getting through on Bakker as well. So there's drivers dropping down due to those medium tyres, and Bakker is the only one to stay out on those mediums. It's a gamble, and I don't think it's going to pay off for him, as Van Erven was the final driver to make the switch on lap 10, and lap 11 has Becken, and Ryan Bakker still has not made that switch. He's dropped past Zorzo and Shontos down the main straight. He's now dropped past Ryan Modler, and so he's down into 6th place, and I think he's just serving as a roadblock pretty much for the likes of Larry Tulke, Joel Marquardt and Dennis Langrock in their routes through. And I wouldn't be surprised if this actually works out well for Marquardt and Langrock, as Tulke is going to get held up behind Bakker, and they're going to get the opportunity to go through. Larry Tulke sending it to the inside of Rayan, who's not going to give up the position very easily, but the tyres are going to force him to give it up easily, and he drops to 7th place, so he's not held him up as much as he possibly could. But Joel Marquardt still in that DRS array, and Bakker, I'd say this has worked well to bring the V-Carb and the Ferrari back into the fight.
It certainly has brought them back into the fight, but it's still going to be a little bit further off Larry Tulke than they would have liked. And actually as well, they just got a little bit held up through the castle section, so I think it could have helped them. As you can see into turn 12, that's a bold move from Joel Marquardt. That was brave. He had a lot of faith in Ryan Bakker for that one, and he somehow saw himself get up into that 7th place. Is Langrock going to go for the move into the final braking zone? No, he is not. He's just going to sit behind and try to go for that DRS move. Look at the front of the field, though, as Rapasa was able to get that move done on Van Bussel last time around. As we can see in the DRS, here comes Jerry Van Bussel when he swaps again with his teammates, and Diego Zorzo is going to try hunt him down. Diego Zorzo also trying to hunt down Rapasa, as well as Shontos being overtaken by Ryan Modler. Lost a lot of time over the course of this lap as Raniele is able to get past on the Ryan Bakker has come into pit lane 2 as Langrock having to defend from the Alpine up into turn 1. Not able to get the move done so far is Pasquale, and I think he's just going to have to sit behind 2. But to have wing damage and change that front wing and still be in that top 10 for the Alpine of Raniele, it's going really well for him as he's looking to potentially get the move done into turn 3. Is he going to look for it? Oh, that's very much reactive defensive move there from Dennis Langrock. That might have been a little bit of controversy if there was some contact there, but for Raniele, he's going to have to sit behind once more, but I don't think he'll be very happy with that defensive move from the Ferrari.
No, I'm not particularly happy with the defensive move from the Ferrari either. As somebody that knows Dennis quite personally, it felt as though he moved twice. But I think the argument could be made that he moved left to cover him off and then moved right to try and make the corner. So I think there's a couple of ways you could look at this. And I think that's going to be one that's debated in the stewards room. But Pasquale Raniele is going to try and get past him with the DRS down the main straight, because towards the middle of the straight, at least, you're not going to have any problems with swerving unless it's a driver like one particular one that's not in this race tonight. And Well, I mean, we're all the better for it. Pasquale Ranieri is going to try and get that DRS down the next straight. And he's got JST on his rear as well. So Dennis Langrock could come under significant pressure, despite the fact that Ranieri's tyres are 2 laps older, almost double the age of Dennis Langrock's. And he's just going to try and close him with the DRS 8/10 back now. And JST might be the one actually to try and make a move on Ranieri. Langrock's had a strong last sector, and he's going to try and close him. But this is the fight for third place. Diego Zorzo even has managed to get within that DRS range of Luca Rapassa. So he has done a very, very good job over the last lap. He's pushed that Mercedes to its limit, and he's thrown himself into the fight as we're past the halfway mark.
Yes, yes, he certainly has, and we are going to be in for a very frantic second half to this race. So Rapassa won't be close enough for a move just yet on his Red Bull teammate Jerry Van Bussel, but for Zorzo now getting into that DRS range, it just shows how you can just really push the limits of your car and really fight back against the cars in front if they're not pushing too much and they're not really going for glory just yet. And that is exactly what the Spaniard needed as he tries to hunt down the 2 Dutchmen in front. So for Diego Zorzo, as we're heading into the castle section in a moment's time, he now kind of wants to keep this 2-second gap to Ryan Modler behind, but if Zorzo can do it, Modler can do it, and he could see himself back into this fight and bring along Shontos and Tulki too. So we could have 6 cars fighting for the lead at the halfway stage of this race. And for Van Bussel, he's actually nearly breaking that second over Luca Rapassa, but Rapassa, the championship leader, is just fighting enough to stay in it.
Yes, he certainly is. He's doing enough to stay in it, which is exactly what he needs to do at this point in time. And just wait till the end of the race where that 1 lap of difference between himself and Jerry Van Bussel's tyres is going to play into effect. He might also be conserving to try and defend from Diego Zorzo as well, because if he can get Diego to about 7/10 back and then absolutely blast his way up to Jerry Van Bussel, then it'll give him a good opportunity to try and make the Mercedes work all over again for that position, because he knows that Zorzo will have been saving on the previous lap and might have to save once again. 14 of 26, and we've got 3 drivers within the DRS. Ryan Modler not making his way into the DRS, so I think we can pretty comfortably say that this is going to be the fight for the podium so far this race. And within the last 12 laps, I think they're going to stay within range as well, as Kokeni gets past Beiser and tries to make this horror show of a race slightly less horror show style. But yeah, top of the field, Jerry Van Bussel, Luca Rapassa, Diego Zorzo all ready. And Modler, Shontos and Tulki, don't get me wrong, are going to be waiting in the wings. And if there's any mistakes, any scraps from any of these drivers, then it could wake those 3 right back up. Marquardt and Langrock just a little bit too far back, and they've taken a 5-car train with them. But yeah, they didn't take advantage of the Rayan Bakar DRS as much as they possibly could. And it looks like it's one of those situations where they had an opportunity, just a small opening, and it didn't quite pay off for them. They're still only 1.3 behind, so again, any mistake ahead could enlight them in the fight, but it just feels as though it's going to be all Van Bussel, Rapassa and Zorzo.
Yeah, it certainly is, and I mean, for the likes of Marquardt and Langrock trying to hunt down Larry Tulki, yeah, it really was. They just caught Bakar at the wrong time, whereas Tulki was able to catch him exactly when he needed to the most, into a part of the circuit where you can just throw a lunge when you've got that much of a tyre deficit. And it was really unfortunate to see for Marquardt and Langrock as they try and hunt back down the Haas driver. And yeah, it was all just a case of you needed to catch those medium tyre runners at the right place and at the right time. And unfortunately, they did not get that, as here comes Langrock on John Marquardt up into that first corner. The Ferrari, a nice little DRS move there from the German as he sees himself move up into that 7th place. And these two are going to be swapping positions to try and catch back up to the Finn in front, as Jerry Van Bussel was still leading the way from Luca Rapassa. And I think we're going to see this from the top 3 quite a bit for the rest of the race until we get to those final few laps where they kind of just stay around about that 5 to 8 away from one another down that main straight, and they don't really go for the moves because they know it's not worth it. It's not worth fighting just yet, and it's still a very long race to go. We've just hit 11 laps remaining, and they don't want to invite the other drivers into the squabble as well. So there's still plenty to play for. And for the top 3, they know if they play this right, it will just be them 3 come lap 26, all squabbling it out for the lead.
Yes, it feels like it's only going to be those three scrapping out for the lead, and they just need to be careful at this point in time to not push each other over that limit. Jerry Van Bussel, Luca Rapata, and Diego Zorzo in a very comfortable position at the moment at the top, and yeah, they're going to pick up those points. Luca Rapata is going to extend his championship lead. Of course, Jerry Van Bussel getting his first points on the board in his first race as well, if he's able to finish this one off. And then Diego Zorzo, who's not quite as close to the championship lead as he would have liked, as I think he would have potentially expected as well, because then Diego is establishing himself as one of the quickest drivers in the scene, and he's just not quite been on song so far this season. Maybe F125 isn't the game where he explodes. Maybe late game is going to be kind to him. We're hoping that that is going to be the case. But yeah, Diego's also at the moment only 2 races won, being a DNF. So this will be a good result to put the confidence back into him. And he's just doing very well at the moment to stay within that range, and I think there'll be a little bit of nerves coming out, because this will be his first real good performance of the season and of the game cycle. So Diego will be desperate to seal this one off.
Yeah, he certainly would, as JSD just got a move done on Pasquale Ranieri for that 9th place, but crucially has just dropped out of Dennis Lanrock's DRS window, and there's contact between the two Alpines. Tom Roberts and Ranieri coming to blows at turn 5, and somehow they're both facing the right direction, and somehow neither of them have any major front wing damage. That was really on the limit from the pair of them, and I think Ranieri was just turning into the corner, and it was a late lunge from Tom Roberts which caused that incident. And unfortunately for Tom, I think he was just a little bit too daring on that one, and he hits his teammate. The number 1 rule in racing, do not hit your teammate. That has been broken, and that now leaves them out of the DRS range of ST. And I think that was just a miscalculated move there from Roberts, which has now put that battle for the final World Championship point under a lot of scrutiny.
Yes, it's going to get just that little bit more spicy as we head down the main straight, and DRS is going to be available for Roberts, but not Ranieri, crucially, and so we could be seeing a scrap once again. Ranieri's tyres 4 laps older, so you feel as though if they were going to be working together as a team at all, then Roberts would make his way through. Langrock's got through on Marquardt, and the 2 Alpines side by side. Roberts very desperate to get through and very desperate to slam the door in Ranieri's face, and he does just exactly that. I think he was wanting that DRS off of JST, which he does not have, so Ranieri is going to try and come back out of the exit of turn number 2, and with that DRS you'd think that he's going to be able to make his way through pretty easily. Roberts pushing absolutely everything he can. He's actually gaining on JST, which means that Ranieri isn't able to close in, and well, Roberts doing a very good job. He now needs a supreme sector 2 to stop anybody else catching up.
He certainly does. Of course, he's got 2.4 seconds between him and Pepe Marti behind. And him and Wojtek Steg have actually made some nice moves up through the field. They're now in 12th and 13th respectively, and been able to capitalise on the different strategies that have been at hand and the front wing damages that have unfortunately come some drivers' way. And look at that gap at the front of the field. The top 3 have really been eaten into over the past few laps by Ryan Modler. That gap now 1.1 seconds, and he's dropped, crucially, Gabor Shontos behind as well. I don't know if there's any damage on that Aston Martin, because he was really all over the back of the Ferrari only a few laps ago. And no, all intact there for Gab, also just seeming to be struggling with a little bit of pace. And for the man who won the first round of the season and unfortunately crashed in qualifying, this is a very disappointing evening. Yes, it's a 5th place finish, but I think he was expecting much more coming into this. And for Shontos, he's now going to be under all sorts of pressure from Torquay, and he could see that 5th place go in a blink of an eye.
He certainly could, and they're going to head down the straight with the DRS. Of course, they're going to get it down into turn 3 as well, but Larry Torquay doesn't need it into turn 3 of Shontos at least, because he's going to try and gain it back off Ryan Modler, but they've lost 0.5 of a second to him, and so Torquay is going to lose that DRS, and Shontos is going to have the opportunity to fight right back. But is it going to be a rinse and repeat of Roberts and Ranieri, as that was a hell of a tongue twister there, but Ryan Modler is 1.6 seconds ahead of Larry Torquay, and Shontos not able to gain advantage. It feels like the DRS after turn 2 it's just absolutely nothing. It feels like nobody's making overtakes there. Nobody's even gaining down there. So I think it's just all about that DRS down the main straight at this point in time, as for whatever reason, it just doesn't seem like, for the 2nd lap in a row, it doesn't seem like anything in that out of that second corner is going to do anything. That that second exit of the corner, and that second DRS zone is not what they're going to be gaining off of at the moment. Larry Tulkey doing a very good job actually to try and make his way back into the DRS of Ryan Modler, 1.1 seconds behind.
I feel it might have been a small mistake actually from Ryan Modler over the course of this lap, and it's dropped him quite about 9 tenths off where he was last time around on Diego Zorzo. So certainly I think a mistake at potentially turn 2 or 3 has really cost the Scuderia Ferrari driver, and Tulkey now back in that DRS range, and Santos has already been gapped once again by Larry Tulkey. So certainly is struggling is the Aston Martin, and he just can't seem to find a rhythm at the moment on that hard compounded tyres. Of course, he went for that undercut a little bit earlier on. We could say that could potentially be down to some tyre differences, but the tyres are around about the same. It's a 1 lap difference between them. So just really struggling in general is Gabor, as we see Tom Roberts now make that move on SD for 9th place, and Matthias Van Erven gets past on his teammate Pepe Marti for that 12th place as well. Some nice moves being made there with the DRS. But yeah, that second DRS zone we're about to hit now, it just seems the drivers, they're just not able to get the launch, and of course for half the DRS straight you're trying to build that speed back up, so the DRS can't kick in, and it really is just unfortunate to see. You need to be all over the back, about 2 tenths behind when you exit turn 2 if you want to get a move done. Use that battery as well, and it just seems like with the dirty air as well at this stage, no one's able to do that, and they just can't get that drive off the corner to capitalise.
No, it's just it's very difficult for them to get that drive out of the corner, because I feel like the pressure that they're coming under to get that drive out of the corner is what's really costing them. They're feeling that pressure, and then they're maybe just not putting enough pressure on the accelerator to make their way through. As we head back to the leaders, and Jerry Van Bussel, Luca Rapassa and Diego Zorzo are just following each other. It's a bit of a lull in the battle for the top 3 as they will wait for the late game, but I feel like this is going to be a generational fight, as Ryan Modler only 1.8 behind. He has been closing in over the last few laps, and the Ferrari might be within range soon, but for now it's just these top 3 and Larry Tulkey following Modler through, so the pressure is going to be on. Actually, Ryan Modler's small mistake that Larry Tulkey latched upon has opened up the opportunity for a lot more drivers. It's now 4th down to 11th with that DRS, but 1 to 3 also with that DRS, and they're just going to stay in formation for the time being. Are we going to be seeing any moves further down? I think Dennis Langrock is going to go for one on Gabo Shontos, and indeed he is. So the Thomas Enger sim racing driver up into 6th place. Is he going to drop out of the DRS on Larry Tulkey? I'm not sure. I think when he passed the detection, he was in it. And so he has, he's made that move perfectly, and he's going to be up into 6th place. A very good performance from Dennis Langrock at the moment, I think it's fair to say, as he's just, whilst the qualifying pace wasn't quite there, he's managed to sight his way through the field as there's contact between the two. Kicks out was Beisner and Bakar. Bakar squeezed into the wall by Beisner, and that could be that in terms of that fight, as that's going to be front wing damage for Bakar. Not ideal, and I think Beisner has a bit of that front wing damage too, as Kick Sauber are having a horrible day. McLaren, even worse, Keaton Lutt with the DNF, and making it a double DNF for McLaren.
Yeah, unfortunately there for both McLaren drivers, Gottschalk and Keaton Lutt, to see themselves now out of the race. And another teammate squabble has unfortunately come to blows, and that's the second time in this race we've seen 2 drivers from the same stable unfortunately collide, and that was perfect time to cut to that battle for 17th and 18th. And for Ryan Bakar, I don't know if he's going to be happy with that one. It was Beisner on the inside, there was some contact made, and I think it was just the natural understeer of turn 1 really forced Beisner into that moment. They also got past Riyad Sprogis in that moment as well, and these guys are actually 6 seconds off the back of Tamas Kokeni, so they've really got no hope, unless it's a late safety car, of scoring any points in this race. And Tamas Kokeni, of course, who was leading this race for so long, he's just not been able to re-find any rhythm into the train or even catch back up into the train. So it's been really unfortunate for him, as he was looking like a real contender for this race victory. And we could see 4 cars at the front of the field for the top spot. And unfortunately for him, he's down in 15th and looking like he's not going to score any points. But in terms of the championship picture here, I think Luca Rapassa will be very happy with this result here, Joseph. He'll be getting some more points. Well, he's getting 18 points over Cameron Dowds, another about 6 over Ryan Modler too. They're second and third in the standings. And he's just eking out that championship lead. And by this time next week, we could be talking about him having one hand on the trophy as Joel Marquardt and Tom Roberts go side by side through turn 4, now into 5 and 6. Who's going to come out on top in this battle? And there's more contact into turn 5 for Tom Roberts, this time with Joel Marquardt. And the V-Carb sees himself tumble behind his teammates of JSD. And now side by side with Pasquale Ranieri, more contact between the Alpine and the V-Carb. It just seems that Marquardt is maybe addicted to making some contact with these Alpines at the moment, but he hangs on to that 10th place. Ranieri has to sit behind in this very nice inter-team squabble as Pepe Marti is retired. Is that the late safety car the likes of Basner and Bakar needs? It is!
Well, I called it earlier on in the race. I said there was going to be a late safety car, and, well, let's just say I may have read the script for the race before the race, but we're going to have a safety car lap 21 of this race. Imagining that it's going to be out for 3 laps, we're going to get 2 laps of racing action. I reckon it's going to be 2 or 3 laps of racing action, so everybody's going to dive into the pits. This is going to be crazy in the pit lane for softs, and you can see Van Bussel and Rapassa already working together because they know that it's going to be at minimum 2.2 seconds in the pit lane for them too. And if Van Bussel is in the pit lane before Luca Rapassa, and if he just gets anything wrong, then there's going to be a huge hold-up. Rapassa is still going to get held up by at least 7-8 tenths of a second. Van Bussel's out of the pit. Rapassa is going to go in, but that's lost him at least a second and a half, I'd say. And so I think that might be his battle for the race lead over Diego Zorzo and Larry Tulke in for a set of the medium compounder tyre. Matthias van Erven has continued on, so the Williams is going to take the provisional lead of the race. But he's on very, very old hard compound tyres, so I think he is going to very much struggle. But Van Bussel in the lead on softs is doing so well. But Rapassa dropping to 5th place. And, well, that is certainly not ideal. And that might just kill off his battle for the race lead as Jerry Van Bussel looks to take advantage.
Oh, now this is where things will start to get tense and things will start to get dangerous for the likes of Ryan Modler and Luca Rapassa, of course. I was just talking about how much of a swing Rapassa will have in the standings, and that's now been taken away from him, at least against Ryan Modler. And he's now only going to be scoring 10 points over Cameron Dowes. But with Matthias van Erven going for that Hail Mary strategy, he had nothing to lose. He was down in those, he was down in 12th place, I think, at the time. So he had nothing to lose. He could go for a strategy like this. He's looking to try and pick up a race victory. He's looking to try and break into that top 10 in the standings. And this is the perfect way to do it. He's got 2 laps to hold on. And if he's able just to maybe drop that position down the DRS straight, potentially on lap 25, as we start lap 26, he could be in a brilliant position by the time we get out of the bus stop, of the castle section, to be in a real fight for at least a podium in this race. So for Matthias van Erven, he's going to score points, I think, regardless, no matter how this now plays out. And it's going to just all be about how the cars behind react. Of course, Zorzo, Tulke on those medium tyres. Are they going to be better than the softs throughout those 2 racing laps? Or are Van Bussel, Rapassa and Modler just going to have that advantage over them? It is now all about strategy, all about aggressive driving. And there's no time to be cautious. You have got to throw caution to the wind. And you've got to go for those moves. And you've got to get them done. But Van Bussel, he's got a real strong opportunity if he can jump Van Erven early to win this race and just streak off clear.
Having just had a think about it, I can understand why they went on the medium compounder tyres. The softs are going to drop off on that last lap, maybe with a lap and a half to go, and the mediums will become the superior tyre. Hard compound tyre, don't understand it. Don't know why Roberts, Langrock, Marquardt and Bison have gone onto it unless it was a mistake. That's just plain and simple what I think has happened. But I think everybody on the softs or the mediums is going to be with a very tense battle. Jerry Van Bussel is going to fly out of the blocks after the safety car comes in, and he is going to be desperately trying to break that DRS to Diego Zorzo, because I think that could be the deciding factor in this race. But for Zorzo, he is going to get the opportunity to fight for this race victory, and well, it's going to be I think it's going to be swinging Zorzo's way. Most on harder tyre allocation, says Nathan Richards, and I'm not 100% sure what the actual tyre allocation is, but I know that I know surely they've got another set of the medium compounder tyre, because I think the medium was the right way to go here, but I think those soft runners are going to have a great advantage as we head off the line.
Yeah, they certainly will, and it's now really going to cause a little bit of a bottleneck, a bit of congestion as well. Actually, I think we might get underway on this lap, so we could have 3 racing laps actually, and those medium tyres could play a bit more of a factor over the course of this race. We're going to have to wait and see, as of course we're waiting for Ryan Bakal to catch a back up. And now it could mean that Van Erven becomes the de facto safety car a little bit earlier than planned, as we see Bakar catching up. Are we going to get it called in? Yes, we are. This is now crunch time. It'll be 3 laps to go when we cross the line, and all eyes now turns to the Williams of Matthias Van Erven.
They certainly do. He'll be the one to get us underway, and this is the only advantage he's going to have towards the end of this race. He is going to get the opportunity to try to break free, well, he's going to get the opportunity to tell us when we're going to be getting going back to green flag racing. The Williams taking his time, and I don't blame him, because he's trying to cool down the tyres of the softs and the medium runners that are going to be a little bit more volatile than his hards, especially if he's going to weave all the way down the main straight. He's going to wait till that very last moment, I think, to get going, and Jerry Van Bussel just sitting, just waiting, doing his best impression of Kimi Raikkonen, waiting past Matthias Van Erven, heading down the straight. The Williams has a long way to go, and he's going to weave his way all the way down towards the start-finish line, and towards turn number 1 he will go, trying to take the lead away from Jerry Van Bussel, and trying to take as much of an opportunity as he can in order to take this race victory. Green flag racing is underway. Matthias Van Erven's going to lead the way. Jerry Van Bussel's in second. We're almost 3 wide for third place between Zorzo, Rapassa and Modler. Instead, Modler backs out and Rapassa makes his way through. He's up into 4th place, and our championship leader is back on to what will be the provisional podium positions. Gabor Shontos makes his way past Larry Tulke, and he's up into 6th as the early skirmishes come to an end. Jerry Van Bussel pulls to the outside line, and Matthias Van Erven, who tried to squeeze him, tried to shut that gap off, but he couldn't quite do it. And so Matthias Van Erven up into the lead of this race still after the first sector, and he's managing to hold on to it impressively. Wide line from Gabor Shontos opens the door for Larry Tulke to come back at him, but he's not going to be able to do so, and Shontos still holding that inside line. Can he take the opportunity, as we're 2 by 2 for 4th, 6th and 8th? It's going to be 3 wide for 2nd place between Matthias Van Erven, Zorzo and Rapassa, and somehow in all of that, Luca Rapassa takes the race lead.
Brilliant stuff from Luca Rapassa, and there's actually contact between Van Bussel and Van Erven, and Van Bussel off into the wall. He's out of the race. There's a missing front wing there for Dennis Lamrock, and Van Erven, through all that hard racing to try and hold on to that position, to that race lead, he picked up some front wing damage at turn 3, and he just went a little bit too aggressive into turn 7, and that saw him into the side of Jerry Van Bussel, who was leading just like Kokeni for so long, and unfortunately that's come to an end. But for Luca Rapassi, a championship leader now in dreamland at the front of the field, but he's going to have to try and stave off the threat of Diego Zorzo for the next 2 laps here this evening. As you can see, the snake of cars heading down into turn 1. Is Zorzo going to get that move done on the Red Bull, or is he just going to sit behind for now? But he needs to look out from behind, because there's Ryan Modler, and there's a move in the background from JST on Larry Tulke. He's into the side of the Haas and nearly spinning round. He's managed to somehow collect the car, and he's going to fall just behind Pasquale Ranieri, but it is all kicking off here on lap 25 or 26, as Shontos could now set up Modler for 3rd place.
Absolute carnage on the penultimate lap of this race. Luca Rapassa leading Diego Zorzo, Gabor Shontos, after having pretty much no pace, or at least race pace throughout this weekend, after crashing in qualifying, might have the opportunity to take a podium or maybe something more onto the final lap of this race. He's right behind Ryan Modler, who's kept his nose in there all the way throughout this race. He's pretty much stayed unbothered by anybody throughout this race. He's not had anybody fighting him in front. He's not had anybody fighting him in behind, but the pressure that he will be feeling from Shontos now is more than he would have been feeling from anybody else throughout the entire race. And the Aston Martin is looking to get past the Ferrari, and he might use the DRS down the main straight. But Matthias Van Erven's day goes from bad to worse, as his gamble didn't pay off. Contact with Jerry Van Bussel stopped him getting a potential podium, but he did defend it so well into the first few corners on the racetrack, and on that first lap that he was able to complete, or he was able to do 2 sectors at least around the final corner for Luca Rapassa. Diego Zorzo Zorzo, Ryan Modler, as Rapasa and Zorzo once again streak away at the top of the field. They're not joined this time by Jerry Van Bussel, so it's a straight fight for the race lead. And this is going to be the opportunity that Diego Zorzo has been waiting for. It's the reason that he made the switch onto the medium compounded tyre. He's going to get the DRS down the main straight. Is the Mercedes going to be able to get past Rapasa? Rapasa defends the inside. Zorzo's going to try and go the long way round, but Rapasa actually brakes later, and so it gives the opportunity for Zorzo to try and switch back. Rapasa squeezing him to the inside. Zorzo once again looks for that outside line late on, but can't quite take it. Is down to the second DRS straight, and I think this is what's going to decide the race as Rayan Bakar retires from the race. It looks like he's just crashed onto the entry of turn number 1, but Diego Zorzo not able to make it close enough. I think Luca Rapasa has just pushed it enough, and I don't think Diego is going to be able to do anything. It's going to come down to the line. It may well be a photo finish, but Luca Rapasa with a great advantage at the moment on the soft compound tyres. But Diego Zorzo, I think it's the switch moment, and I think this is where the mediums become the better tyre.
It certainly could seem so, and it all boils down to this. That one last shot down the start-finish straight with DRS. These drivers will be saving everything through this middle and the rest of the final sector, at least into turn 17. And for Diego Zorzo, he could be staring at his first race victory of the season, and to brutally deny Luca Rapasa of his third race victory of the season. Are we going to see the championship leader's dominant streak continue, or is Diego Zorzo going to somehow streak to the top of the pile? This is what it all boils down to. This exit at turn 17, Rapasa with a slight slide, and this has unleashed the Mercedes all over the back of the Red Bull. We said he was on a higher wing setup. He went for a different Atheos on the downforce, and here comes Diego Zorzo. He's tucked out of that slipstream. He's opened up the DRS, and he's surely going to get the Red Bull as they head to the line, side by side across the line. It's Zorzo who wins here in Baku. The medium tyre gamble working in his favour as Luca Rapasa finishes in second. And it's Diego Zorzo, the Spaniard, reigns supreme here in Azerbaijan. A spectacular race that was in those dying embers. Rapasa will still be happy with a second place and keeps the 100% podium streak alive and gains points over both Modler and also Cameron Dowds. But that was a spectacular race, Joseph, and it all boiled down to that final run to the line. And for Diego Zorzo, he timed things to perfection.
Absolutely unbelievable. Potentially the best race that we will see at Azerbaijan this season in terms of all the fights that we'll be seeing in all of the different tiers. And I think that one is going to be the one that tops them all, and potentially the best race of the Tier 2 season. But it's going to be the victory heading Diego Zorzo's way, fully deserved. And the gamble that he made to switch onto the mediums paid off in the end. Luca Rapasa, second place, dropping down from that pole position, but he got incredibly lucky, incredibly unlucky at the end, even with Diego Zorzo taking that victory. Ryan Modler holding on to P3, and that is an expected finish after Jerry Van Bussel's problems. Larry Tulke in fourth, and Pasquale Ranieri, who was side by side with Gabor Shontos, was able to snatch P5 off of the Hungarian in that fifth place. And well, of course, Gabor Shontos then subsequently dropped to sixth. Then seventh place for JST, Tom Robertson, Tamas Kokeni, and Richard Sprogis rounding out the top 10. Lucas Beisner, Wojtek Steg, Dennis Langrock, Joel Marquardt, and well, they are rounding out your finishers with Matthias van Erven as well, with Rayan Bakar and Jerry Van Bussel, your final registered drivers, and 2 DNFs from this race, being both of the McLarens. And, of course, we had Rayan Bakar retiring as well. But what an end to the race that we had on our hands. And, well, that was an absolute classic, I think it was, in the last couple of laps. I think there was about 6 or 7 drivers who, even after 2 laps of racing, ended within a tenth of each other.
Yeah, that was just absolutely amazing racing. That was those final 3 laps were certainly some of the most exciting of the season, and it really shows how tightly contested a field can be over the course of such few laps, and especially the first lap not having DRS, and how different strategies then play out, and those mistakes that can cost drivers, like we saw Matthias van Erven go for that lunge with missing half a front wing on Jerry Van Bussel, and unfortunately that cost Jerry Van Bussel any opportunity of winning the race, and they're the big switches and the big moments that can make or break a driver's season or a driver's race overall. And unfortunately for Jerry, he was on the wrong end of things, so it just didn't work into his favour at all. And I think Van Erven is going to potentially pick up a penalty for that one. It was a very silly move. It was a very desperate move to hold on to the position. He could have scored points still if he didn't go for that. And yeah, so for Van Erven, I'm expecting the stewards to look into that one. And for Van Bussel, he'll be very disappointed in that because he could have potentially won that race. He could have been in Zorzo's shoes on that final lap. And it just shows how these moments, they might seem small in a stage, and a safety car may have been a small moment for them, just snowball into something much bigger.
Yeah, very much could do, and that was a very interesting race. I think it would have been. I genuinely think it would have been 3 wide at the end at the line. I think it would have been a photo finish if Jerry Van Bussel had been involved in it. Van Bussel, Rapassa, and Diego Zorzo fighting with each other all race long, and it was only contact between the two vans, Bussel and Erven, that saw the end of the fight and saw them drop down the order. And of course, Jerry Van Bussel not finishing the race either, which I failed to mention towards the end. But yeah, it was a very, very, very high stakes race, and I think that was just it was all down to the final tyres that were selected. The medium compounder tyre was reigning supreme, and we'll get the opportunity to speak to the man who took that who took the gamble onto the mediums in the minute. But we're going to speak to somebody who took what looked like an easy gamble onto a set of the soft compound tyres. It didn't quite pay off. Luca Rapassa, if you can hear us, then please talk us through that Azerbaijan Grand Prix.
It was a very boring race, to be honest. Just sitting behind Jerry, waiting for the final lap to overtake him, and then it would have been an easy one too. But then, Cees got him out. I didn't have new mediums. Sorso did, so he had better tires. Matthijs, he was doing some interesting moves, but I got into P1 from there. But Zorzo played very smart. There was nothing really I could do. It was almost guaranteed P2. I was hoping maybe Ryan would send it in Zorzo and then I could maybe get P1, but it didn't happen. And yeah, just the maximum I could have done.
Did it feel like when Diego was able to follow you through, did it feel like it was just going to be a matter of time as to when Diego was going to be able to make his way through? Or do you think you had more of an opportunity on those softs than I think I'm giving you credit for?
There was nothing I could have done. Like the softs were like so much that I think after the second last lap, so his tires were already better than mine. So I was just hoping, I was just trying to stay ahead, because if he would have overtaken me in turn 1, he would have just completely driven away from me in the middle sector. So I was hoping for a miracle, but nothing I could have done.
In terms of the way this affects your championship, I mean, of course, you've got the advantage up at the top. Ryan Modler didn't quite let you break away as much as you possibly could with Cameron Dales not racing. But do you think that you've got the championship next round or the round after? Because it feels like that's the debate.
I don't really know what the points gap is now, but I'll try to get it next week, and otherwise I'll just try to get it the week after. There's not really a hurry or anything like that. I'll just see what happens in the race. I do like Silverstone, so it should be a decent track for me.
If there's got anything, then we'll let you go, Max.
Yeah, of course. One from me, Luca. You're now it's 61 points now between you and Ryan in the standings, so you could potentially get it done next time out. But anyway, other than that, just talk us through that safety car restart, that opening lap. Of course, Matthijs was really slowing everyone down on that way to the start finish line. Just how difficult was it, A, to judge the timing of when to go, and then of course B, to keep your nose out of trouble with cars everywhere on the road?
It was like I knew he was gonna get late because his tire disadvantage was really big. Like he was on 12 lap old hard, we were on almost new soft, so it was only a matter of time before we would overtake him. I was just trying to overtake Ryan as soon as possible, which worked. Got him into tier 1. And then I knew it was going to be chaos in the middle sector, so I just tried to stay out of the way. And I saw a gap with Diego into the chicane, so I went around his outside. But yeah, Matthijs just sent it for a gap that just wasn't there and just took Jerry out. I don't know what he was thinking, but I got 3 overtakes, so it kind of helped me, I guess.
Yeah, it certainly did. So I guess that move on Diego was quite a decisive factor on you getting into that race lead in the first place. But yeah, congratulations on second place. The 100% podium streak stays alive, and hopefully this time next week we potentially see you as the champion here in Tier 2.
Let's hope.
Thank you, and congratulations. Enjoy your evening.
Have a good night.
Right then, Joseph, shall we move on to the man who picked up his first points of the season, just like Andre Molnar last time out in Monaco, and he's got the big 25 points next to his name. So shall we bring in Diego's auto?
Of course, we should, and we hopefully, if he can hear us, we'll get the opportunity to listen to the perspective of the driver that took the gamble in that second, or after that safety car, and in that split second where he could have made that decision to go onto the softs. Instead, he went onto the mediums, went for the last lap gamble, and it ended up paying off Diego. If you want to talk us through your race, if you're able to hear us, then that'd be much appreciated.
Yeah, hello. So, well, first of all, quali wasn't ideal. I was before, I lost a bit of time, but yeah. Then I knew I had the 2 Red Bulls ahead, so I knew I should box with one of them and then undercut the other. But situation was impossible because I would have lost a lot of time. And then, yeah, I mean, nothing really I could do with behind both Red Bulls on the hards. So I was lucky it was a safety car and they double stacked. So I was basically P2. And then, yeah, the accident with the Williams. I don't really know what happened or how I got out alive. But yeah, it was nice. I knew their softs would drop off a lot. I didn't have any softs. I had only the mediums, so it wasn't really a strategical choice. It was just what I had. And I just stayed behind Luca for the final DRS, and that was it, basically.
That's fair enough. And then when it came onto the final lap, did you always plan to get through on that final straight, or was it a little bit more just a sort of force where you were trying to get through in the first few corners and then you end up getting through on that final corner, or was it just a case of waiting for the final straight?
Well, to be honest, I wanted to get past the lap before because I knew their softs would drop off a lot, and if I got past them, I would have probably, run away. But I couldn't. Luca defended well, and I didn't really want to compromise the whole battery, so I just stayed behind, and I knew I could easily get past him with DRS if he didn't play any DRS games, which was basically my concern. But he obviously didn't because he stopped fighting for the championship, so I don't think it would have been really smart from him to do that, and he played it really fair and well.
From the both of you. Max, have you got anything for Diego before we let him go celebrate?
Of course, Diego. There's one from me, of course. That was your first points of the season, so congratulations on the big points all early on. Of course, Luca has really run away with this championship at this stage. I mean, he could potentially win it next week, but other than, of course, that, what's your goals for the rest of the season? Is it more race wins? Is it a certain place in the championship? Or, yeah, what are your expectations for the rest of the season?
Well, so yeah, I think you remember what happened in round 1. I the NF last corner, and that was easy, 25 points gone. Then round 2 was pretty much the same, so I could have got 50 points there, but I didn't, and then I just went on holiday, so I missed 3 races more. And yeah, coming back with 0 points, I knew Luca is far gone, and my main goal is to finish P2, basically. Obviously, I want to get as many wins as possible, And I would have loved to fight for the championship with Luca. But yeah, just not possible, missing 3 races and DNF in 2. So yeah, I'll just do my best the rest of the season, and we'll see how I end up finishing.
We'll see how you do end up finishing. Of course, Silverstone next week. Quickly, actually, one more. How are you feeling around there? Do you reckon you can repeat the feat and make it back-to-back race wins?
Not really. It's not one of my best tracks, to be honest. I would need to practice really hard to be at the top in terms of pace, but I'll do my best. It hasn't been my best track ever.
Well, we shall see. I mean, anything can happen in this tier, as we know, and anything can happen throughout the season. But enjoy your race victory, and yeah, enjoy the rest of your evening and go celebrate, mate. A good drive from yourself.
Thanks, guys. Pleasure.
Thank you. Right, that is going to be it here from us in the commentary box. Joseph, a spectacular race here in Baku, and for Luca Rapassa, certainly has one hand on that trophy, and you never know, could be crowned champion next week.
Yeah, it feels like he's had that hand on that trophy for a couple of weeks now, and the fact that he could be crowned in a 10-race season in race number 7 is just absolutely unbelievable, and it's fair play and testament to the driver that he is. The fact that he's been able to do that on one of the highest tiers that you can possibly get, of course, PC tier number 2, and tier number 1 is just a step away from Luca Rapassa, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see him at some point later this season taking his making his bow and having a go at seeing what he can do against the top level esports drivers. And based on the performance tonight, he wouldn't be too far out of his depth.
Yeah, he wouldn't be. He's just really showed some super cool consistency for the majority of this season. Well, for the whole of this season, he's not finished off the podium once. And he's only finished third in those first 6 races the once. Last time out in Monaco, it's just been first and second place finishes. He's just been on such a dominant streak. And it's very rare you find that here in PCF2 or any tier in WOR or in esports as well. It's very abnormal to see a driver dominate this much in a tier where, of course, there's so many high-level drivers, so it just shows how good he is at the moment, how strong he's been on this game. And along with it, he just goes through each race without really any controversy. He just sticks to himself, he keeps the car clean, and he's just the epitome of consistent pace, consistent driving, and just not getting in any unnecessary incidents. And if he can carry that on for the next 3-4 seasons, he could certainly see himself as a contender in PCF1 before you know it.
Yeah, I think it would be. I think it would be unsurprising to see him in its tier 1, not F1.
Yes.
But it would be unsurprising to see him up there very soon. And yeah, he's just an incredible driver, and that's what we can take out of today. And Diego's also as well doing incredibly well to pick up his first points of the season with a victory. But yeah, I think it was incredible performances from them. Unlucky for Jerry Van Bussen, but of course that incident will, I'm sure, be displayed all over Twitter soon. At least it'll be discussed in the stewards room. But those top 3 demonstrating incredible pace at the tricky circuit that is Azerbaijan.
Yes, they certainly did. But that is going to be all for this evening, ladies and gentlemen. Luca Rapassa extends his championship lead at the top of the field. We could potentially see him crowned next week, so make sure you stick around for a trip over to Northamptonshire, where we head over to Silverstone for what should be a frantic race, even more action, and at a circuit with plenty of overtaking opportunity. Thank you all very much for watching. Your support is very duly appreciated here in WR. We love seeing you guys in the chat, liking the video, subscribing to the channel as well. I've been Max Ring. Joseph has been Joseph, but thank you all very much for watching. Stay safe, stay well, and we'll see you next week, 8 PM BST, for another classic in PC Tier 2. Thank you and goodbye.